Oh man, and just like that, we are back. What is going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know. It's yours truly, Clifton Pope, the founder and CEO of Health, Fitness, Wealth Business, and of course, your host of the HFWB Podcast Series. And just like that, we're back with another solo episode. As I told you from last week, I'm going to continue this Wellness Whisperer series on episode 151 of the HFWB Podcast Series. Before I get into the topics of discussion for today, I want to give a special shout out to everyone as far as who is currently listening to this particular episode of the HFWB Podcast Series, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Amazon Podcast, any podcast platform you could think of, I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and your busy day-to-day lives as far as just to download an episode of the HFWB Podcast Series, stream an episode of the HFWB Podcast Series, and most importantly, tell your family and friends about the HFWB Podcast Series to where we can continue to grow one day at a time, one step at a time. And at the same time, also take time to leave a review, leave comments below, good or bad. The way I look at it is all publicity is good publicity at the end of the day. And just take time to just, do your research, fact check the truth, and at the same time have a nice little open heart to heart honest conversation as far as with your families and friends, as far as all the topics that are being discussed on the HFWB Podcast Series. So I want to also give a special shout out to everybody who is currently watching on YouTube right now as well. Be sure to hit that subscribe button at Health, Fitness, Wealth Business, and that's 1S on the business, 8726. Y'all continue to subscribe to the YouTube channel to where I'm going to keep coming back with more exclusive content for the HFWB Podcast Series. But with that being said, I want to kind of piggyback on where I left off on last week as far as the Wellness Whisperer series that I'm currently doing with the HFWB Podcast Series, as I'm continuing to show you ways on how you could continue to save yourself and at the same time become a saver within the Savers Method, as I alluded to last week. The Savers Method: silence, affirmation, visualizations, exercise, reading, and writing. And I want to ask y'all real quick, are you practicing those? Are you implementing those steps, day by day, step by step? Because I know it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little bit of time. I remember when I started, implementing the Savers Method after I read The Miracle Morning by Al Harad, which I'm still recommending each of y'all continue to get a copy of that particular book, because that book alone is going to change your perspective on how you look at things in life. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you a few books right now that have kind of changed my perspective on life. The Miracle Morning by Al Harad, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, a very popular one by the entrepreneurs, without a doubt, and business owners, realtors, the whole nine yards. Cash Flow Quadrant, which is basically the follow-up to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The Art of War, Think and Grow Rich, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Rogers' Rules of Success by Henry C. Rogers. I'm giving you literally access to the library of books that I constantly study and read over and over again. Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. That's another very popular book that I definitely recommend everybody read. So for those who are kind of wondering, what kind of books do you read, Clifton? What is in your personal library? I literally just named you about 7 to 8 books that you can start off with to build yourself into, reading more books and stuff of that nature. Another good book that I would recommend reading, The Healing Revolution by Dr. Frank King. That right there basically laid down the foundation of what health, fitness, wealth, business is all about from the get-go. So it's like I just literally named you off the top about 5 to 10 books that you could start off with, as far as for anyone who's having trouble figuring out which book can I have to help improve myself, to help empower myself, to help uplift myself. You can start with those books just for starters. Another book I would recommend y'all reading is How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek, as far as to understand the holistic well-being, as far as just how you can balance yourself out, as far as from movement, breathing, thinking, nutrition, hydration, sleep, all of those things. That's a game changer right there. And also Movement That Matters by Paul Chek is also a really good book that I recommend everybody add to their personal library as well, just to kind of help y'all out as far as to help save yourself within the Savers method, right? And at the same time, don't forget to get yourself a nice little cheap journal. You can literally buy them at Walmart for like, I don't know, 50 cents, maybe no more than $1. Get you a pack of pens, open up that first page, and most importantly, just start jotting down those thoughts, y'all. Start jotting down how you feel. Start jotting down what your goals are, what you're grateful for. That way you can come back to those as reminders, just in case if you're feeling down and out and you feel like the world is against you and all those things. I would definitely recommend you do that as well. That's the R and the S, the Savers, reading and scribing, right? And at the same time, I want to touch a little bit on, the exercise portion, with me being a holistic fitness trainer and everything. It's all about, movement, just get out there and move. Like, you don't have to literally go get yourself a gym membership, and you don't have to feel pressured into doing that. Now, if you want to do that to kind of get the real results that you're looking for from a physical standpoint and to continue to evolve your body, I'm all for that. I myself, I do a little bit of both. I go to the gym one week, since I do have a membership at Crunch Fitness. Me and the love of my life, Miss Emily Espinosa, we go to Crunch Fitness, literally every other week, 4 or 5 in the morning, getting our workout in. That way we can start off our day. But when we don't go to the gym, we also work out here in the comforts of our home. If you want to start off with just working out at home, hey, get you a yoga mat, get you some resistant bands. You can get you some 5 to 10 pound dumbbells. That way you can start light and work out, with some basic movements, like mastering the primal pattern movements as far as the pulling motion. You can do yourself some bent over rows, some bicep curls. You can do, like, for instance, of course, you got your pulling motion, you got your pushing motion. You can do some dumbbell bench presses or dumbbell overhead presses, just to get yourself comfortable within that for perspective. And at the same time, you also want to master, of course, the lunge. You can master the squat. You can do that from the comforts of your own home. You want to master the hip hinge as well, which is the key as far as to executing a perfect deadlift. Really utilizing your hips, your hamstrings, your glutes, and touching up the lower back just a little bit. You can't go wrong with that. And most importantly, you want to get your body moving as far as working those hips, as far as rotation standpoint. Like, for instance, if you do a forward lunge and you rotate to the side in which you're doing the forward lunge as far as the leg is concerned. Like, for example, if you do a forward lunge with your left leg, practice implementing the art of rotating to your left side, and vice versa. If you do a forward lunge with your right leg, practice rotating to the right side. Do 3 sets of 5 to 10 to kind of start things out and get yourself comfortable with the form, comfortable with the movement. That way you could play around with the function and speed things up a little bit if necessary. And that's something I'll definitely get into a little bit more as I dive into, the art of the primal pattern movement, because that's a whole nother podcast episode within itself. So there's nothing wrong with that within its entirety as well. And at the same time, the most important thing is mastering the art of gait movement, which kind of leads me to what I was talking about last week as far as the importance of walking. And if you don't feel comfortable, with For instance, running and jogging, because there's three different types of gait movement. There's your walking gait, there's your jogging gait, and there's your sprinting gait. You know, I personally like to do all three, but let's start with walking in particular, because walking is a game changer within itself, like I mentioned last week on the episode of the HFWB Podcast Series. It's one of the most simplest yet highly effective ways to promote your overall well-being and healthy living. I told y'all that last week, and I'm going to give you some key physical health benefits from walking. Did you know that walking can help out with your cardiovascular health? I mean, walking regularly can reduce the risk of heart disease. It can reduce the risk of stroke. Last time I checked, heart disease and stroke is one of the top 10 major health concerns and top 10 major causes of death last time that I checked. And at the same time, speaking of that, walking also helps lower your blood pressure. It lowers your high blood pressure. For those who are suffering from high blood pressure, why don't you go out and take a 5 to 10 minute walk and see how much that will make a difference within your life? And at the same time, walking, it helps burn calories. It helps out with your weight management and burning fat. It helps out with boosting your metabolism, which ironically enough aids with weight loss, which is kind of like what I just mentioned with the weight management and stuff like that. So for those who are having trouble losing weight, remember, walking is man's best medicine. Literally go for a walk in the nearby park, go walk around in your neighborhood. All it takes is 5 to 10 minutes. You don't even have to walk a whole mile like I currently do on a daily basis. You can walk, a quarter of a mile. Work yourself up, you got to crawl before you walk, right? You got to start yourself off, with a quarter of a mile. And then once you get comfortable with that, work your way up to half a mile. And then if you feel comfortable walking a half a mile after a few days, week or two or so, bump it up to 1 mile and take it up a notch, take it by the baby steps, crawl before you walk. That way, you can reduce the risk of heart disease. You can reduce the risk of stroke. You could improve your HDL, your good cholesterol levels versus the bad cholesterol levels. You can help burn calories, which helps aid the weight management, which helps boost the metabolism. Oh, and by the way, did you know that walking could also, strengthen your muscles as far as engaging various muscle groups, especially in the legs and your core, as far as like your transverse abdominis, your multifidus, your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, which basically forms your whole entire abdominal region. And at the same time, your whole entire lower body, y'all, from the glutes, the quads, the hamstrings, the calves, Achilles, the all basis of your feet, you name it. It's going to help out with that. And at the same time, walking, in all honesty, y'all, it helps enhances your flexibility and reduce the risk of joint pain and stiffness. And at the same time, it reduces the risk of osteoporosis, which is basically goes against, increasing the bone density within your bones. So basically, walking literally helps strengthen out your bones and then some. And at the same time, for all those people who are suffering from diabetes and everything, y'all, walking does help out with, improving your insulin sensitivity. It helps lower your blood sugar levels. It helps enhances your lung function and your breathing efficiency, especially for those who are having trouble with shortness of breath and everything. And last but not least, as far as from a physical component of what walking can do, because it does a lot as well from a mental, emotional, spiritual standpoint, which we'll get into in another episode down the road. But the last but not least, it also helps out with your immunity boost. As in other words, it enhances your immune functions. It strengthens your immune system, which at the same time reduces the risk of infections. So you can't go wrong with taking a quick little 5 to 10, 15-minute walk, however long you feel like walking, because you're going to reduce the risk of heart disease, stroke. You're going to help lower your high blood pressure. You're going to help out with managing your weight. You're going to strengthen your muscles, especially in your legs and core, like I alluded to. You're going to enhance your flexibility and get rid of that joint pain and stiffness. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be dealing with no joint pain or stiffness. So you shouldn't either. And at the same time, it's going to cut down on your blood sugar levels. It's going to improve your insulin sensitivity for all those people who have diabetes or suffering from type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And the most important thing is, or last two most important things as friendly reminders, you want to help improve your breathing efficiency to where you could breathe in and out. You could literally turn walking into like a meditation. Focus on breathing in through your nose for 3 to 5 seconds, holding your breath for 3 to 5 seconds, and exhaling slowly for 3 to 5 seconds. That way you can help build up that lung function as well within your lungs, as far as just for your respiratory health. And at the same time, last but not least, my favorite one, it helps boost your immune system, which is needed to help get rid of all the infections that your body can face on a regular basis. So those are pretty much the physical components of what walking can and will do as far as just to improve your overall health and well-being and basically enhance the quality of your overall life. And another thing that walking can help out in regards to is that it also plays an effect as far as with walking in the grass, walking in the sand, walking in the dirt, kind of like what I was alluding to last week as far as like the importance of grounding yourself, or as practicing the art of earthing, as they also call it. Because did you know that with grounding yourself, walking in the grass, walking in the sand, walking in the dirt, that it helps out with, again, improving your blood viscosity and your circulation, which is crucial to cardiovascular health, which is kind of what I just alluded to as far as the walking and stuff. It also helps out with reducing chronic pain as far as grounding yourself, taking those slow steps in the grass, taking those slow steps in the dirt, taking those slow steps in the sand. And at the same time, overall, it helps out, with, of course, just helping you get better quality of sleep and anything, if anything, as far as, fewer disturbances. It helps regulate your circadian rhythm to where it leads to better sleep cycles. I can honestly say ever since I've implemented practicing grounding, walking outside barefooted in my front yard and basically the grass and stuff, I've been sleeping tremendously like a baby, to the point where I don't even really need to smoke as much weed as much just so I can fall asleep like I've been doing from time to time. So grounding definitely plays a huge role, and it plays a huge impact as far as just making a difference for your overall health, because again, it helps out with reducing the inflammation in your overall body, which is basically the root cause to all chronic health conditions, kind of like what I was alluding to as first. So I ask you this: have you been grounding yourself? Have you been earthing yourself? Have you been taking time out of your busy schedule to do those two things I just said, which is kind of the same thing, grounding and earthing? It's one and the same. Have you been taking, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes out of your day to go for a little walk in a nearby park, a nearby beach near you, for those who live by the water, or basically just go for a walk around the block within your own neighborhood? Have you been making time to do those things? Well, if you haven't, you should, because last time I checked, there's 24 hours in a day. I don't want to hear nothing about I don't have time, or I have this to do, I have that to do. That's just a whole bunch of bullshit. If you're going to quit anything, quit making excuses. That way you can take care of your overall well-being, because yes, you could chase after the next form of success. Yes, you could chase after the next paycheck. Yes, you can focus on the destination. What happened to the overall journey? Last time I checked, health is wealth. That's the reason why I ask people who come on to my podcast, what is your personal definition of health and wealth? Because health and wealth, you can't have one without the other. They're basically both sides of the coin. If you could chase after going after the money, the power, the success, and everything that comes with it, But none of that is going to make a difference if you're healthy enough to reap the benefits to where you can pass that on to maybe your family and keep that generational wealth going, which is why I say you can't, without basically the first form of wealth is health. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. The first form of wealth is health. Hence, health is wealth, which is basically the core of what health, fitness, wealth business is basically all about. So I basically encourage everybody to take their health more seriously, more so than ever in 2024 and beyond for that matter, because we're honestly in the final quarter of 2024. So what are you going to do beyond 2024 to better your overall health and well-being? I'll tell you one thing that you should be doing that can definitely make a difference and make an impact in your life. You should implement fasting into your life. And yes, I get it. If you want to consult with a medical professional before fasting, if you don't feel comfortable doing it and jumping right into it, that's perfectly fine as well. And it's kind of like what I alluded to in the last episode of the HFWB Podcast Series. Fasting has basically been around for basically years, you know what I'm saying, for centuries for that matter. And it spans across various cultures and religions for the potential health benefits and the spiritual insights. Me personally, I've been implementing fasting into my life more so for the mental clarity and more so for the spiritual enlightenment. And speaking of the mental clarity and the spiritual enlightenment and stuff of that nature, did you know, as far as if you fast, that it helps out with cognitive function within your brain? It basically enhances that cognitive and function and protects yourself against neurodegenerative diseases. And at the same time, it helps promote neurogenesis. As in other words, it promotes the growth of new neurons and enhances your overall brain function, meaning it's going to increase the levels of brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is for BDNF, for those who love acronyms, which basically supports your overall brain health. And I know you've been hearing a lot of me talking about heart health as far as with walking and grounding. Here's what fasting could also do for your heart health. Fasting can basically improve risk factors related to heart disease, such as blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and triglycerides. As in other words, fasting can help out in getting heart disease, blood pressure, cholesterol levels under control within that. And at the same time, did I also mention that fasting can help with, and it helps improve, it helps reduce reduce inflammation within your whole body. And it basically alleviates all that oxidative stress that the body builds up, which helps improve your overall health within itself. And my most favorite thing about fasting that I have to touch on, most importantly, that I feel like is very, very important, it's the spiritual enlightenment that works well with fasting as far as I'm concerned, because most people don't realize with fasting that it increases your spiritual awareness. It increases your connection to the power of the spirit, the Holy Spirit that's within you. It allows you to become more closer and more in tune with God, with the form of true consciousness that we have within us. And it provides time, for introspection and spiritual reflection. I could honestly say, ever since I've incorporated fasting into my life, I feel like I'm becoming more and more closer with God than I've ever become. I've always been close with God, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, ever since I've incorporated fasting, now I understand why all the great prophets that they talk about in the Bible that have done it. Like, for instance, Moses, he went up into the mountains, as they talk about in Exodus, if I'm not mistaken correctly in the Bible, as far as him fasting for 40 days and 40 nights in the mountains. That way he can understand the spirit of God and the power of God a whole lot more. And at the same time, last time I checked, Jesus Christ, the Son of God himself, he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, just so he can feel the spiritual connection and the spiritual awareness of God himself. So it's like fasting, yes, it can provide so many benefits as far as, from a physical standpoint. And at the same time, it also helps out with cleaning out the damaged cells and regenerating new ones. And at the same time, it helps out with using the body to basically store fat for energy, aiding in weight loss. It also helps out with, enhancing this insulin sensitivity, reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes. And at the same time, it preserves your muscle mass and helps promote the fat loss. Yes, fasting does all of those things, but I encourage and I strongly recommend everybody to incorporate fasting into their life for the mental clarity and the spiritual enlightenment, more so than the physical evolution. Because let's not get it twisted, y'all. It's a four-corner thing, y'all. We're always trying to figure out ways on how we can evolve physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And once you do all of those things, you'll be surprised on how much abundance in health will come, and which will lead to how much more abundance in wealth will come. Health is wealth. You probably heard me say that many a times before in the past, and I'm going to keep on saying it just so I can beat it into your head so it makes sense. And as a matter of fact, I'm currently on my 36-hour water fast as we speak, and I'll probably break my fast a little bit later on this evening. But overall, I encourage everybody, if you're scared about fasting, and you have your doubts, and you're questioning on if you can do it more so than anything, how about this? Start with intermittent fasting. Start by, fasting for 12 hours. As in other words, here's how that works. Basically, you skip breakfast, and at the same time, you make your first meal your lunch, for instance. Like for example, you eat like a small portion for, lunch, or that can be kind of like your brunch. For example, you can eat like a little small portion, eat something light, incorporate more fruits and vegetables into your system. That way the fruits can cleanse out your system and the vegetables can strengthen it. Eat like a salad or something for lunch. Of course, drink your couple of liters of water a day just to kind of help out with, aiding in the intermittent fasting and stuff. And at the same time, you eat your largest meal for dinner, and you eat your dinner no later than 9 p.m. sharp. And then once that cutoff time comes around 9 p.m., definitely no later than 10 p.m., then that's when you begin your intermittent fasting right then and there. And you don't eat nothing. And for instance, if you eat your last meal at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., then you basically don't eat anything until basically after 8 a.m., for example. Or hence you eat like a late dinner, like I tend to do sometimes, 10 p.m., 11 p.m. range. Then you basically fast and do that intermittent fasting, and you don't eat anything until after 10 a.m., 11 a.m. It's very, very common, and it's very, very doable. And it's like I say in my book, A Dollar in a Vision, which you can get now on Amazon.com. And for everyone who's listening in Corpus Christi, Texas, you can get at Black Cat bookstores. It's like I say in A Dollar in a Vision, my last chapter especially, if I can do it, so can you. So just again, start with those baby steps. Work your way into fasting for 12 hours. See how you react to it. If you feel comfortable with 12 hours, increase it to, 18 hours, to where you don't eat anything all day and just drink water all day, just so you can keep yourself full. Because a lot of people confuse thirst with hunger. Most of the times we think that we're hungry. In all actuality, we're just thirsty. Our mouth is dry, our tongue is dry, the stomach rumblance is occurring on a regular basis. And that's a whole nother thing. And I'm going to get into that on another episode of the HFWB Podcast Series. But to kind of give a brief summary before I break it down into pieces on another episode, we confuse hunger with thirst a lot. So you'd be surprised on how full a liter of water can keep you for a few hours throughout the day. I'm living proof. I'm currently, again, doing a 36-hour water fast right now as we speak. And technically, it's about 37 hours because right now it is September the 20th, 2024, and it is 2:26 p.m. as I'm recording this episode of the HFWB Podcast Series, which will release tomorrow on all podcast platforms and YouTube. Start with just your intermittent fasting, 12 hours, increase it to 18. And then if you feel comfortable with that, go into a 24-hour fast and then build yourself up as far as increasing the length and duration of your fast. My personal goal is that when the holidays come, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, when it's time to eat those big meals and stuff yourself and stuff your faces on a level of gluttony and all that stuff, I'm planning on doing at least a 3-day fast before I go into Thanksgiving. I'm planning on doing at least a 3-day fast going into Christmas. And at the same time, going into 2025, I'm definitely planning on incorporating a 3-day fast myself. And then eventually going into the new year, 2025 and beyond, I'm planning on maybe incorporating a 7-day fast at some point within the early stages and first quarter of 2025. That way I can really take my mental clarity, really take my spiritual enlightenment to the next level. Because with the times that we're in, trust me, it's going to come very, very in handy as far as incorporating fasting just for, again, that mental clarity and that spiritual enlightenment. And another thing I want to touch on real quick on this episode of the HFWB Podcast Series is going back to the Savers method. I definitely encourage everybody to take time to have a little bit of a moment of silence and all this stuff, because overall, that's going to come in handy within itself, because, we need to get back in tune with ourselves. We need to tap into our chakra systems. We need to tap into those energy centers that we have within our body. And I don't know if y'all are aware of this or not. There's 7 chakras that the body overall has within itself, which kind of ties everything together that I'm talking about from a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual standpoint. I'm not going to touch on all chakras right now. I'm just going to start with the first one to kick things off. There's the root chakra, which is basically the first chakra that we have that basically covers like the base of your spine all the way down to your lower body, right? Now, when you balance out this root chakra, which you can do by meditating to the frequency 396 Hz frequency. If you don't believe me, you could literally go on YouTube right now, type in 396 Hz frequency. That is the frequency that allows you to tap into the root chakra, that energy disc, which basically that's what a chakra is. It's an energy disc that forms the energy center within all aspects of your body systems. We all have that within us. I don't know if they taught you that in school, but I'm telling you that now. And if you don't believe me, fact check me if I'm wrong and do your own research. I'm just telling you what I've researched and what I am currently experiencing on a regular basis. Now, when you feel grounded and when you feel balanced with the root chakra, you feel more grounded, you feel more secure, you feel more safe at the same time. And whenever your root chakra is all out of whack and imbalanced, you probably are dealing with a high sense of anxiety, right? You're probably dealing with some fear right now. You're probably feeling fatigued. You're always having lower back pain, for example. If you're one of those people who are listening, experiencing with lower back pain, experiencing with fatigue and all that stuff, your root chakra is more than likely all out of alignment. So that is why we need to focus on, aligning that root chakra, for instance, to where we can feel more grounded and feel more secure, and we can feel more stable, because our whole lower body's all out of whack, and that's why we're always so tired and we're always so fatigued. And that's why when people bend down all the time, they always complain about having lower back pain. It's because their root chakra is all out of alignment. And that's just from a physical standpoint. And if you want to talk about it from a mental and emotional standpoint, that's what builds up that anxiety. That's what builds up that fear, because our sense of security and our basic needs is on high alert right now, because we're always striving for food, we're always striving for shelter, we're always striving for safety, job security, money, all that kind of stuff. It's all part of our survival instincts. When it comes down to the root chakra, it's basically all about survival instincts, stability, and grounding yourself, which is kind of what I was talking about, the importance of grounding ourselves and reconnecting with Mother Earth. That way we can feed off of the electrical currents that the earth provides us from the basis of our feet to work our way up, all the way up to basically our head and our crown chakra, which I'll get into in another episode, because it gives us that natural electrical charge that we need to where we can be in tune with feeling secure, be in tune with feeling stable, be in tune to where we can continue to survive and continue to thrive, to where we can continue to grow through what we go through, find room for improvement, and at the same time, again, continue to evolve physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. That way we can continue to save ourselves, because we really do need to save ourselves more so than ever. And one way, honestly, y'all, that I've been kind of saving myself a little bit is that, I've been going back to the basics, right? I've been going back to, I'm challenging myself and finding ways on how I can continue to evolve from a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual standpoint. One thing that I've been doing from a spiritual standpoint to kind of evolve myself a little bit is I've been going back to reading the source, the Holy Bible, for those who are wondering what I mean by the source. Because I remember Snoop Dogg said this in one of his podcasts, the GGM podcast, and this is something that I stand by: within every G is God. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Within every G is God. As in other words, we need to go back to the gospel. We need to go back to the Holy Bible. And I'm currently challenging everybody right now. If you haven't done this, this is my first time doing it, and it's been such a mind-opening experience within itself. And this is something that I should have done a long time ago. Shame on me for not doing it, and shame on you for not doing it if you haven't done it. I challenge everybody right here, right now, to read the whole entire Bible from the book of Genesis to the book of Revelations. And I'm going to touch on each of these books within the Bible in future podcast episodes as well. But I want to kind of touch on the beginning of Genesis as I kind of close out this particular episode of the HFWB Podcast Series. I want to talk about, the 7 days of creation, as far as how God created the light, created the sky, created the land, vegetation, celestial bodies, animals, and then finally humans, and most importantly, resting on the seventh day as he did all of those things. Because we need to go back to, just the importance of just finding ways to recreate ourselves through Mother Earth, through everything that God created from the book of Genesis, because it's pretty much the foundation of the whole entire world and humanity as we speak. There's so many things that happened as far as within the book of Genesis when I go back to it, that kind of blows my mind a little bit. It's like, for instance, the story with Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. We had everything. It's like God gave us everything, And I mean, he did give us everything in a way in the beginning times, at least gave everything to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, as far as just the importance of just taking care of yourself through the basics, like through the fruits, through the vegetables, through the overall water and the herbs and everything. And it's like Adam and Eve, they were tempted, by the forbidden fruit. They were tempted by the serpent, which is basically the devil in the form of a snake, for those who read the book of Genesis. It's the temptation of us wanting to put stuff within our body that we know is not good for us, and we still do it anyways, because it's like they say, why do the things that are so bad make us feel so good? It's because of temptation. That's the problem with all of us on why we continue to suffer and we continue to set ourselves back from a physical well-being to a mental well-being to an emotional well-being and to a spiritual well-being. It's temptation. That is the original sin right there, y'all. Temptation. This act of disobedience introduced sin to humanity. And at the same time, that is basically why we need to rediscover ourselves through walking a little bit. This is why we need to rediscover ourselves by grounding ourselves through Mother Earth, through the grass, the dirt, the sand. This is why we need to rediscover ourselves through fasting, as far as just to have that spiritual reflection, that spiritual enlightenment, and most importantly, boost our mental clarity to where we can improve the way that we think, the way that our brain cognitively functions, to improve the overall brain health. Because last time I checked, the brain is a muscle. So we need to work out the muscles within our brain, just like we work out the muscles that we have within our upper body and lower body at the gym or at home if you choose to work out at home. We need to focus on recreating ourselves just for the sake of where we can make the world a better place, to where we can save what's left of humanity. Because time is ticking and time is most definitely running out, y'all, because things are getting crazy. Things are getting crazy with everything that's going on in the world. And I can't believe I'm at this point in my life to where I have to be like the one to where it's like, hey, if you don't say I didn't warn y'all, because here I am warning y'all. So I want y'all to heed this information wisely, more so than anything. Because we're gonna tackle all this stuff as far as within this Wellness Whisperer series. We're gonna tackle a little bit more as far as why it's important to continue to walk, why it's important to continue to ground ourselves, and why it's important to continue to meditate and all that. Or excuse me, fast, and most importantly, meditate to all the chakra levels and all that wonderful stuff. Because we're going to break all of this down in a series. We're going to break all this down in series without a doubt, because this is the Wellness Whisperer series that I'm going to continue to build upon more so than ever. And at the same time, we're going to incorporate a little bit of the gospel bit by bit. Because I can assure you this, I'm going to use this platform with the HFWB Podcast Series going forward to break down certain pieces of the Bible. Every single piece, as I continue to study it and break it down, from the book of Genesis all the way to the book of Revelations. Trust me, y'all, I'm only getting started with this. The Wellness Whisperer series is on and popping. And with that being said, I feel like I've said enough here for today, because I know I threw a little bit at y'all, but I want y'all to do your research. I want you to use your brain. I want you to train your mind to where your body will eventually follow suit. I'm challenging each and every single one of y'all to do exactly that, because that is what we need more so than ever. But with that being said, I want to thank y'all for listening to another episode of the HFWB Podcast Series. I want y'all to continue to follow me on Facebook, searching my name, Clifton Pope, or all lowercase Health, Fitness, Wealth, Business on Facebook. You can follow me on Instagram, at @CPope, _44. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok at all lowercase health, the letter F, the word wealth, the letter B, .cp. Follow me on TikTok. Y'all need to visit my website, healthfitnesswealthbusiness.com /CP. I promise I will update that website very, very soon within the next couple of weeks. I apologize if some of the content on there isn't up to date and up to par yet. That is definitely on the back of my mind of things to do, which I plan on doing within the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, in between time, y'all visit healthfitnesswealthbusiness.com/CP for all the latest with what's going on with health, fitness, wealth business. Y'all continue to download, stream, and basically subscribe to the HFWB Podcast Series. I don't care if you do it through Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, whatever podcast platform you can think of. Subscribe to the HFWB Podcast Series for just $5 a month, y'all. $5 a month. You can get exclusive content for the HFWB Podcast Series. And believe me, I plan on recording more exclusive content for the HFWB Podcast Series within the next week or two. So stay tuned for that. And subscribe for $5 a month. That way you can get access to this exclusive content. I don't want y'all to miss out because it's only going to get better from here. I can assure you that. And at the same time, y'all continue to get the copies of my book, What's Wealth Without Work? $1 and a Vision, the first two of my personal development self-help book series that I have going. And I'm working on the trilogy right now, finishing that up. Consistency with a Sense of Urgency. It's coming very, very soon, sooner than you think. And at the same time, get a copy of my first poetry book that I wrote, End Times, What is Your Revelation? It's funny how I named it that because I'm going through the whole Bible from Genesis to Revelations. So we're going to dive through all of that. I kind of break down the 7 deadly sins on how you can overcome each of those 7 deadly sins that we experience. But regardless, you can get What's Wealth Without Work, $1 and a Vision, and End Times, What is Your Revelation? You can get it on Amazon.com for everyone listening to the podcast outside of Corpus Christi, Texas. And if you are in Corpus Christi, Texas, you can go to Black Cat Bookstores. Black Cat Bookstores, which is located off of South Staple Street, 1316 South Staple Street. Go by Black Cat Bookstores and get you a copy of What's Wealth Without Work, $1 and a Vision, and End Times, What is Your Revelation? That way you could support local bookstores and you can support yours truly, a local self-published author. I'm doing this. It's all me. No one else, all me. Just throwing that out there. And yeah, y'all go. Also, before I forget, y'all go stop by TNT Health, which is located here in Corpus Christi, Texas. For all my people listening to the podcast here in Corpus Christi, Texas, go by TNT Health, 9450 SBID Suite 6B. That way you can get you a dozen of sea moss gummies. I'm selling them $20 a dozen. You won't be disappointed if you want a natural boost in your energy, natural boost in your overall metabolism, digestion, and at the same time, it's a good post-workout recovery supplement. I definitely recommend it. And with flu and cold season coming around the corner, and with COVID-19 not going anywhere anytime soon, I guarantee you these sea moss gummies will help out in relieving those cold, flu, and COVID-19 like symptoms. So go stop by TNT Health, get you a dozen of sea moss gummies for $20 a dozen, and you could tell them that Clifton Pope sent you as well. But besides that, I feel like I've beat this episode to death enough like a horse. So I thank y'all once again for tuning in to another edition of the HFWB Podcast Series. Once again, this is your host, Clifton Pope. I thank y'all for taking time out of y'all's busy day-to-day productive lives as far as wherever you may be, however you may be listening to basically tune into this episode of the HFWB Podcast Series. And trust me, I do have more interviews that are coming down the road, and I will continue this Wellness Whisperer series. And at the same time, I'm also going to tackle some things that are going on in the political landscape as well, you know, with the whole Project 2025, Agenda 47, and all that. Trust me, I'm going to be doing a separate series, separate from the Wellness Whisperer series on top of that as well. So there's a lot of content, and that's another reason why you should download and stream every single episode of the HFWB Podcast Series, because you never know what you're going to get. And at the same time, leave a review, leave a comment. That way we can grow this show together, y'all. All my listeners, all my followers, all my audience everywhere. We're taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. It all starts with you, the people, and I appreciate it, because this is the reason why I do the HFWB Podcast Series, for you, the people. So let's continue to grow together. Let's continue to shine together, thrive together, survive together, so we can stand strong together more so than ever. Once again, this is your host, Clifton Pope of the HFWB Podcast Series. I always encourage everybody to stay healthy, wealthy, and blessed. Peace and love. And until next time, y'all.